Transistors. Transistors are small semiconductor devices. They can act in many ways, which we will explore later on. They are the cornerstone of modern electronics and can be found in almost every modern application. Structure of transistors. Transistors are three-legged devices. These three connections are called the base, emitter, and collector. The arrow on the symbol indicates the direction of conventional flow of current. Remember, conventional current flow is the opposite of electron flow. Transistors are usually made from silicon. A thin layer of P-type material is sandwiched between two thicker layers of N-type material. The transistor is then referred to as an NPN transistor. This type of transistor is known as a bipolar junction transistor. The uses of a transistor. A transistor is an essential part of any microchip. You may know that a microchip is made up of tiny switches, but instead of conventional switches with moving parts, transistors are used. The transistor as a switch. Why do you think you would want to use a transistor as a switch? A. They are small. B. They are cheap. C. They are reliable. D. They don't have any moving parts. E. They are electronically activated. Comparing a transistor and a switch. As you can see from the diagrams above, the transistor acts exactly like a switch, but the input is electronic and not mechanical. The transistor as a switch. Let's see what happens when we slowly increase the voltage across the base emitter junction. As you can see, the transistor as a switch is triggered when the voltage between the base and the emitter is greater than 0.7 volts. Using a transistor as a switch. Using the setup below, close the switch and see what happens. When the switch is closed, the voltage at the base triggers the electronic switch in the transistor and turns the light on. If we replace the switch with a thermistor, what will happen when the thermistor gets hotter? What could this circuit be used for? Currents through a transistor. General laws. IE equals IC plus IB. IB is generally small, as it is the base current which triggers the switch. A typical value is roughly 1 milliamp. IC divided by IB is known as the current gain, and is a very significant characteristic of a transistor. If a transistor has a current gain of, say, 50, it means that a base current of 1 milliamp can be used to control a collector current of 50 milliamps. Quick transistor test. Drag the labels on the right to the corresponding legs of the transistor. Use the equations that we covered earlier to work out the value of the missing current. Thyristors. A thyristor is a three-legged semiconductor device very similar to a transistor. The three connections are called the gate, anode, and cathode. If the voltage at the gate rises above a certain value, the thyristor conducts and will continue to conduct until IA falls to 0. A thyristor is able to switch itself on and off very quickly, which is why they are used in dimmer switches. In turning the light on and off so fast, they give the illusion that the light is being dimmed. Applications of thyristors. Look at the circuit below and deduce what will happen when the temperature rises. When the temperature reaches the point shown on the graph, the transistor acts as a switch and conducts. The gate voltage of the thyristor rises, and therefore the thyristor conducts, lighting the bulb. In using a thyristor instead of a relay, we have removed all moving parts, making the entire circuit electronic. What would happen if you were to adjust the potentiometer in the circuit? What would happen to the bulb if the temperature were to drop back below the arrow? If you were to adjust the variable resistor, you would affect the potential divider between the thermistor and the variable resistor. If you were to decrease the resistance, it would have to get hotter before the transistor would be triggered. If the temperature was to fall below the arrowed point, the transistor would cease to conduct. The bulb, however, would remain lit, as the thyristor would continue to conduct until IA falls to 0. This would only happen if the power supply was cut.